Hello, I'm Father Matthew Hawkins from the Diocese of Pittsburgh. Although the COVID-19 pandemic has been from its very outset in the United States last winter frightening and tragic, it has created an opportunity, as tragedies often do, to deepen our awareness of the spiritual dimensions of our lives and our self-understanding as both transitory and eternal beings. Bishop Robert Barron recently pointed out that this pandemic should make us all aware of the radical contingency of our lives. Tomorrow is not promised to us. It is an illusion for us to live in the midst of a world that is passing away and yet to believe that our transitory world is permanent. Yet underlying all that is transitory, and that which is fading into history at this very moment, there is a new creation that is beginning to take shape. This new creation began with the incarnation of the Word, when the Word became flesh and Jesus Christ was born. This is what we will celebrate on Christmas Day, and it is what we now anticipate during the season of Advent. Because of the incarnation and dawning of the new creation, we must not allow our sudden awareness of the radical contingency of our lives lead us to immobilizing fear, hopelessness, and despair. The sudden realization of how vulnerable we are should not overwhelm us or cause us to turn inward and focus only on our problems and our fears. Christ entered into a world of radical contingency to redeem us and show us the way forward, which is to break free of being focused only on ourselves. Recently, Pope Francis noted yet another dimension of the spirituality that this pandemic may awaken in us. Francis wrote in an opinion piece that was published in the New York Times, "The pandemic has exposed the paradox that while we are more connected, we are also more divided. We have been made aware of how interdependent we are, even to our counterparts on the other side of the globe. And in our families, neighborhoods, and communities, we depend on each other to keep the virus contained and to reduce its opportunity for spreading. And yet at the same time, the pandemic exposes the vast inequalities in our society and also around the globe. Again, in our own communities and neighborhoods, we can see the difference between wealth and privilege in contrast to poverty in terms of one's ability to shelter in place while working or to gain access to online learning. We see the difference that access to reliable and affordable health care makes for those who have it in contrast against those who don't. The pandemic unites and divides us all. As Pope Francis pointed out, this virus exposes the disparity of resources in our society, and it may tempt us to see some lives as being cheap and dispensable. This marginalization of the other is antithetical to Christianity. Francis writes, "It is hard to build a culture of encounter in which we meet as people with the shared dignity within a throwaway culture that regards the well-being of the elderly, the unemployed, the disabled, and the unborn as peripheral to our own well-being. We must not allow this crisis to scare us into abandoning our obligation to the well-being of our neighbor and the stranger. As Christians, we may be awakened through this crisis. The crisis may awaken us to our human interconnectedness as well as to a deeper understanding of the spiritual and theological lens through which we should all see all of our experiences." Francis writes that to come out of this crisis better, we have to recover the knowledge that as a people, we have a shared destination. The pandemic has reminded us that no one is saved alone. What ties us to one another is what we commonly call solidarity. Solidarity is more than acts of generosity, important as they are. It is the call to embrace the reality that we are bound by bonds of reciprocity. This is the Christian path of Eucharistic living. Christianity is about far more than simply checking the boxes and jumping through the hoops that enable us to be compliant with a set of rules and regulations. Christianity is about learning the true meaning of love and solidarity, which lifts us up, draws us out of ourselves, transcends our apparent isolation, and enables us to live abundantly in the Spirit of Jesus Christ.